Let me get some tunes in here. Damn. I don't think did I open it with this one? I hope I did. I should have uploads. You know what? Hold on. Boy, I had to hold my mic back in the day. Boy. It smells so good outside. Ain't nobody tuning in. Like, damn. Yo, that nose pimple going bananas. All right, 2 people in here. Thank you so much for joining, guys. Sean said he's going to be a little bit late, but thank you so much for joining. So for the people here who are familiar with my content and with interviews and stuff, this will be what I'm planning is after this interview, I have one more planned for next week, and then after that one, I'm taking a little bit of a break from newer content. I came to this decision because, like, sorry, I'm trying to tweet out the link, text out the link or whatever. But I need to get a haircut, bro. The hatting. You feel me? But, yeah. So I have to take a break for a little bit, man. I'm gonna go more into detail in the later video, but I just kind of, I don't know, man. I have to take a break because I have school, and I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like people are just gonna call me the interview guy when I'm really an artist. Like, I'm really just like an artist, and it's gonna bother me. It's gonna bother the hell out of me. Yes. So I don't want to just be called the interviewer, and I have a lot of content I want to work on. Y'all see the guitar in the back, you know, like I got that hat, I got the fedora. I'm trying to be me. Like, there's just so much I want to do, and unfortunately, I've been a very bad artist. I'm not like made stuff, and people just call me the interviewer. Oh, my boy Evan, thank you for joining. But yeah, I just wish people. I don't want to be seen as just the interview guy. I want to be seen as an artist, and I'm not being seen as an artist right now, and it's pissing me off. But it's my fault. I'm pissed off at myself, so that's why I'm taking a break from interviews for like at least a month, or newer content. I'm still like post, but there's just a lot I want to do, and I feel like I always run late. Damn, I would like. But Sean will be here in like a couple minutes, guys. He texted me and said he's gonna be a tad bit late, so don't worry. Thank you all for sticking through it with me. I play music because, like, usually with my Instagram lives, if you've joined my Instagram lives, excuse me, when I do interviews, it's like I play like a little bit of music in the beginning, but like YouTube is way more strict with like copyright claims, so I don't want to get in trouble. And I'm already getting in trouble on Instagram, bro. Like, Instagram is a mess. But yeah. So I'm gonna make a video next week just detailing why I'm taking a hiatus. And also people in my personal life have been making me very upset. So do I sound good? I hope I sound good. I'm about to test this out. I hope I sound great. People gonna leave, and then Sean is gonna join, and he's gonna be like, "Where's everybody at?" I'm sorry, I ran them away. I'm not a good talker, unfortunately. I'm not that good with filling in the void. It's crackling too much. I can never have like a. Oh boy, I'm crackling. Give me a second. Okay. Which wasn't fucking cracking like a motherfucker, bro. Shit. All right, 4 people are here. The pressure has been added. I don't want to do. How do I sound, guys? Do I sound good? Do I sound bad? How do I look? Like, let me know what's going on. Because right now, it's not sounding great on my end. Damn, you sound fine. All right, thank you, Evan. I'm losing my mind, and yeah, maybe it's the connection. It's probably the connection. I have to take everything off. It's too much stuff going on. What if I accidentally click out of here? That'd be funny as fuck. Okay, close that. Close that. Don't save, leave me alone. Okay, close that. Close that. I'm just closing tabs on my thing. So because I'm cracking and it's pissing me off, bro. All right. So as soon as Sean gets here, I'm gonna do my intro. I didn't write my intro. I'm losing my mind a little bit, just a tad. I didn't write my. He's here. Okay. All right. So now I'm gonna do my intro. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another installment of Jam More Interviews. I'm your host, Josh, aka Jam More, and today I have an extremely special guest with me today. He's the voice of Spider-Man in Marvel's Avengers, Noob, Saibot in Mortal Kombat 11. I'm probably saying his name wrong, but Revali, and he's gonna correct me because he's the character in League of Legends. No, not League of Legends. Legend of Zelda. And he's done a ton of anime dubs across the board. He's a great human being and an even talented actor, the amazing Sean Chiplock. I'm pretty sure I said it right.
Hello, everybody. Don't mind the hair. I just came back from running out. My wife and I were making plans to give you all an excuse, mind you, of why I ended up being 5-7 minutes late. This started like any other typical weekend where we were sleeping in, and then we were like, hey, we get the keys to our first ever house tomorrow. We should probably do some planning on like appliances that we're going to need. And out of the blue, my father is like, hey, there's this washer dryer combo that's on sale. And it's like the one appliance that we were going to need to replace. And then there was also a really good deal on a couch that we were looking at. So we went from being like just waking up to out of the house driving to like 2 different living space locations within like 10 minutes. We weren't able to finish everything today. The couch we were going to have to take some measurements on. The washer dryer set we did end up ordering, but we're going to have to make sure it's the correct hookup and everything. But that's been like the last 4 hours of my day so far. So I just got back after chugging a Powerade, a coffee, and now I've got a Red Bull going into my system. But I'm glad that I could make it. Hello, everybody. And it's funny that you mentioned like all of the different roles that I was doing because long story short, the associate that ended up helping us at the couch place is a huge fan of stuff like Tokyo Revengers, Breath of the Wild. So we're like, for the first time in forever outside of a convention space, I got to gently, humbly flex like my roles and just get to see someone in person freaking the hell out about the fact that they were speaking. Like the dude was like on his feet, like, James, you got to come over here. The voice of Revali is chilling with me. We're cool. We're friends right now.
That is so cool. But before I get into the questions, I would just like to say how much of a humbling and honoring experience it is to be getting to talk to you. Like I've been following you for a minute, and just like I'm a huge fan of your personality. And I'm a huge fan of your work, and I was just like, I could really be friends with this guy. Like, you just really have a good energy about you. So I really wanted to speak to you just based solely off of your personality alone. So I'm just really glad to be speaking to you today. So thank you so much for joining me and giving me
Thank
some
you.
of
Thank
your
you for
time.
being
So I really
patient for
appreciate
me.
it.
I greatly appreciate it.
So now you're going to kick off the interview. Welcome to the segment I like to call What is on Your Mind. Here we have a segment where you could talk about literally anything you want at all. You know, I have my questions, but you usually don't ask the interviewee what are they thinking or what they want to talk about. So here is where you get to talk about anything, a show you're watching, a book you're reading, something, anything at all that you just want to get off of your chest. The floor is all yours.
I mean, I assume this is going to be pretty obvious, and I'm sorry if it's not what people want to hear about, but pretty much the only thing that my brain has been focused on over the last month and a half at this point is becoming a first-time homeowner. And it's still surreal because, like, apparently tomorrow afternoon is when the keys go into our hands, and it's like I don't think it's going to process to me that it's real until like we unlock the door with keys and there's no other family in there. You know, it's going to look a lot more barren than when we were, you know, touring the house. But the fact that everything inside of there is going to be ours. Well, technically the bank's, but the bank, you know, until we finish paying it off, it is tentatively ours. But that's consumed my every waking moment. And I feel like we had it easy. Like, I completely understand now why housing seems like such an impossible feat for so many of our generation. And I'm going to avoid getting like super like doom post political about it. But like, despite the stress, despite like the costs of our down payment, despite all the paperwork that we had to sign for the loan, I think we had it easy. And just because the family left a lot of appliances, the only thing they took with them in terms of major appliances was the washer dryer. So we saved money on there. They maintained the house. You know, the house was in really good condition. We did pay over asking, which is extremely common in this market, especially in California, but we didn't pay a huge amount over asking compared to what the usual is. Like, usually you're looking at like 40 to 50 grand over asking when you get to the typical house price. And we didn't even have to offer that much over asking. It's because we had a lot in common with the family, so we lucked out there. But like, before we ended up finding this listing, the first one that we looked at was, I mean, it wasn't condemned, but in our minds, it might as well have been. You know, it had the vents weren't working properly. It had termite and rodent problems that were ongoing. The foundation was in great need of repairs just to make sure that it was stable. This house needed at least $50,000 worth of work for it to be in a much better livable condition. And that house was a $750,000 like asking price overall. That house in that condition was worth about $700,000 to start. I think the exact one was 688 or something like that. So the fact that we got this other house at about the same price and it was in so much better condition is miraculous. And it's stressful to think about because like we put all of that time, all of that research, you know, all of that guesswork into, is this the place for us? And even then, we're still having to spend money on stuff like the couch, on the washer dryer, on any, you know, updates that we want to make to the room. You know, we're not going to go like super fancy decking it out, but we'd like a hobbies room. We'd like a stream room. You know, there's little knickknacks that we want to put in there, and all of that stuff is going to slowly add up. So the fact that we have to account for all of that financially on top of a $750,000 house with a down payment that we had to make, which for most of us is going to be between 15 to 20%. So you're talking about 150 grand right off the bat that you got on a down payment. It makes perfect sense now why if this is a better case scenario, like one of the best options we could have had for a first-time homeowner situation in this market, and most would not be this good, I completely understand why most people just look at the housing market and go, maybe in 20 years from now, maybe I'll just rent until I die. So I'm super grateful for the fact that we're about to have a house in our ownership, and I'm super optimistic that it's going to work out for us. But I say that with like this massive sense of survivor's guilt, because everything in my brain is telling me that what happened for us is not the norm. especially for first-time homeowners. And I feel scared for anyone that wants to get out of renting, get out of siphoning your money every month to something that you don't even own, and wants to actually have a place to call their own. So
I ain't gonna lie, I didn't understand half of that, but I understood was the strategy.
I know. If I sound like someone that could turn around and start acting as a real estate agent, first of all, no, what I described is not even a tenth of what we went through. But also, yes, because that is how much I had to teach myself within the last month and a half so that I could make sure I wasn't getting fleeced out of something during the purchase. It requires a lot of time and attention. And I even think the only reason why it worked out for me was because the way that my career works, I don't typically work a full 9 to 5, or rather, if I have auditions, I can do them late at night. I can do them early in the morning. So in most cases, I was free to be texting my realtor between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. before the end of the workday in case I needed to ask questions or if I needed to do background research. My wife, on the other hand, only made it to like 1 or 2 of the inspections that we did in the house because she typically wasn't off of work until 5 p.m. and most contractors didn't work on the weekends. So I can't even begin to imagine how people working 9 to 5 jobs, much less 2 jobs to make ends meet, would be able to find the time to do all of this extra work regarding a house to make sure that they're not getting, the short end of the stick.
Oh my God. That stressed me out. I'm not buying no damn house no time soon. Jeez.
I mean, it might be worth waiting. I'll tell you this right now. The only reason we went for it was because we realized how good of an opportunity this particular house was. Like just the fact that the family happened to be moving out at around this time. But I would not hold it against people that are like, I'm going to wait until the market crashes again, until all these deferred rent payments start hitting and all these student loans kick back up and people aren't able to pay it and the whole economy crashes. That's a good game plan. That's a legit game plan. Wait until everything pops, wait until things collapse again, and then try and get in. I will warn you though, everyone else has the same idea. So you are going to be fighting tooth and nail to try and get that same space that everyone is waiting to be at a steep discount. So
thank you for stressing me out. Sean, I appreciate it.
You said I could say whatever I wanted. I just kept to your word, man.
I'm kidding. It's just because it's like crazy to me because it's like I'm a freshman in college and like hearing people like you talk about like a down payment or buying a house and it's like what is happening? I want to go back to high school, but I don't want to go back to high school. As much
as I want to pretend I'm not, I'm definitely neck deep in adulthood, so I might as well act on it.
Yeah, there's so much going on around the world, and it's just like it's crazy when you like read stuff and look at people doing dumb stuff like supporting some stupid fucking Bored Apes that look like garbage.
NFTs, yeah. Don't get me started on that, man.
No, I have a question here just for that. So wait till that.
Okay, well, I'll just say this much. Like, I was thinking about this on the drive home, but if we ever get to the point where we decide to sell our house, if it's worth like a crap ton more and we want to move to a bigger place, I'm going to talk seriously to my real estate agent about putting in a contingency that says you have to prove that you don't hold any cryptocurrency or NFTs of any sort. And if we find out during the process that you do, we reserve the right to cancel your purchase at any time prior to the final sale. So even like if someone offered us like, because we got the house for $750, if someone offered us like $1,250,000 10 years from now for the house, and a second person offered us $2 million in cash, and I found out that the person offering $2 million had a bunch of NFTs and a bunch of cryptocurrency, and that's why they could afford it, I would turn them down. I wouldn't take it. So that's
same way.
Yeah,
because it's a mess. But now let's get more into the great person you are. I want to ask some questions just to get more about you. So my first question to you is, first starter is, looking back now, what are some early signs that you exhibited that you would say led you to taking this acting path?
Ironically, I would say the biggest sign was one that I wasn't even aware of. It was the fact that I was engaging in the practice of voice acting, before I even understood what it was as a profession, when, I grew up during the prime era of Sega Genesis, Nintendo 64, the original PlayStation, excuse me, Red Bull burps. Excuse me. So that prime era where a lot of games had more, memory to have dialogue, to have text boxes, Ocarina of Time being a really big one, but they often didn't have enough space for any voices outside of like very basic sound effects, like the Ganondorf, something like that. So when my brother and I would play video games in the basement, especially if there was co-op on it, for example, Bomberman 64, The Second Attack is a really big example that I always bring up. He and I would take turns voicing the characters on the screen. And it was just something that we did. It was just something that was fun. I couldn't tell you that I wanted to be a performer. I couldn't tell you that there was any hidden reason behind it. It was just something that we did. So by the time I discovered voice acting as a concept of someone giving life to a character, narrating their text and becoming their voice, I had already engaged in that exact practice. And a lot of other things just fell in line from there. I have a high level of natural energy. I daydream very often. I think of all these wild scenarios. I like the idea of getting to explore all these different worlds. The reason why I enjoyed games like Pokemon and Bomberman 64, The Second Attack, and games like that is because, you had monster companions, and that was something that was really cool to me, was the idea that you could have sentient monsters that worked alongside you in battle or during the story. And so I guess the final nail in the coffin in a positive sense was that, at the time that I discovered voice acting, I was doing fine in school. I was passing my classes. I was doing very well in the tests. I had a high enough grade, but there wasn't anything that captured my interest enough to where I genuinely wanted to spend 4 years in college dedicated on a more focused path of that subject. And so voice acting was the first time that here was something that I personally wanted to be involved in. There was no pressure from outside groups. There was no, shoving from my parents saying, hey, you should look into doing something from this. It was something that I knew I wanted to invest time and effort into. And I just kind of knew that if I was personally interested, then there was a good chance that, one, not only would that interest probably last 4 years and I wouldn't have regrets about it, but two, I could trust myself to put in the effort required to do well in that subject. So with all of those things combined, I said, all right, well, there's a passion there's a fire in my heart. There's a genuine interest in my brain. It's something that I've already been doing. So it's not like I'm starting completely from scratch. I think this is something that I should pursue. And the more that I did it, the more that I ended up enjoying it, the more I realized it was a good fit for me. And it just snowballed from there. So here I am, to this day, being very passionate about my work, being very honest about, the ups and the downs of the industry. And for all the stress that it gives me at times, the stress never overwhelms the excitement that I get from being able to talk about the things that I'm a part of and the people that I get to share those experiences with after those projects come out.
Yes, I'm the same way. When, as someone who is actively getting into the acting field now, coming out of high school, I look back on things like, I'm a huge Transformers kid. I love Transformers. And I remember when the first Michael Bay movie came out, and y'all can have y'all opinions on it, but I love that movie first coming out. And I bought all the toys, and I had this Optimus Prime action helmet, and they used to have this voice modifier to make your voice sound deeper. And I would just play with that forever and ever. And I'd do the voices for Ratchet, or I'd do Optimus Prime. Like, my bad impression of Peter Cullen's Optimus Prime, because I just love doing that stuff, man. And looking on what I'm doing now in the career path I want to pursue, I just look back on things like that, and I'm just like, wow, like, look at me now. No, that must be a similar experience for you. I mean, you have fans now, like, you have however many followers, like, double-digit followers, like more than thousands of followers on Twitter.
Right.
Like, people like genuinely love you and care about you from this career field. I know that must be like an incredible experience to see people come to you at like conventions and want your autograph, and like, I want to take a picture with you, Sean. Oh my gosh, and they hug you, or they're like, like they voice you did in an anime or a video game like really helped them through a dark time. I know that must be an exhilarating experience and something I would at least say you wouldn't have imagined when you first started out.
Sorry, that last part is you imagine that I had a lot of what?
I said I know this all the fan love and people coming to show love and support was like something you wouldn't have imagined when you had first started out in the industry.
I mean, I definitely wouldn't have imagined it. I maybe I had like a sense for it because like even before I got involved in voice acting, I would tend to do things that had a lot of opportunity for audience engagement. This is gonna definitely show my age, but in the era of MySpace and places like that, LiveJournal, I kept a blog on a site called Xanga, Xanga. It tended to be more, you tended to have a lot of different blogs from people that were like anime and cartoon focused. But usually most of my posts were very, introspective. They were a little bit philosophical at times. And I tried to always end them with a question that people could respond to in the comments and that I would respond to in turn. So I'm sure there was a part of me that was aware that, being involved in this industry was going to have some sort of public facing element. Now, I'm not too jazzed about the fact that it has kind of gone the way of Hollywood, where they expect you to be as much of a face-to-face presenter nowadays as you are a voice actor. There definitely used to be a clearer line of division between Hollywood acting and voice acting, where voice actors tend to be much more anonymous outside of the booth, and that's definitely not a thing anymore. Like, we're treated just as much as celebrities as Hollywood people, except when it comes to getting the same rights, payment, and consideration as Hollywood celebrities, as you guys might have witnessed when it comes to movie casting. Mario. So that's something that we have to cope with as well. Other than that, it hasn't really been overwhelming. My response to that is to just be transparent about the fact that I am a human and I have my limits. Part of why I was interested in getting into this career, or part of how I keep myself humble, is I try to consistently remind people that this is a career choice for a human being. I am not anyone's superior. I am not anyone's god or idol. I'm just a dude who happens to do this for a living, and as a result ends up being involved in a lot of the things that you play or that you watch. But I do my best to try and break down any perceived barriers between myself and an audience, which is that, like, hey, I'm going to do my best to interact with you. I'm going to do my best to entertain you. But I'm not obligated to do that unless there is a contract in place that says I have to do it. And so there will be times where I'm like, you know what? We're not friends. We don't know each other that well. I'm going to focus on playing my own game. I stream on top of all of this. God forbid I find the time to do anything for myself. But there are times like recently where I told my stream, hey guys, I'm going to do my best to stick to the schedule, but streaming is not my main source of income. And my house situation is a top priority right now. So I'm going to do my best to stick to the schedule. Everything in my real life comes first, especially with stuff like interviews. I don't remember the exact conversation that we had, but I'm pretty sure I said, hey, I think the weekend is our best bet, because if you do this during a weekday, if any client reaches out to me and says, hey, what's your availability on this day? The work comes first. I will cancel an interview in a heartbeat for it. So that's just how I operate. So.
No. I completely respect it. Like I said, for every person that has allowed me to enter into their life for just however long we stay on, or allowed me to speak to them for just like a tiny bit of time, it truly is such a honoring and humbling thing for me. Like, cause like at the end of the day, you don't know me. I'm just like this nobody who wants to speak to you. At the end of the day, like we don't really have any personal connections, and it's just such an honor for you to, say yes, or for anyone to say yes to little old me who has a dream of being in this industry and dreams to work with people such as yourself, and through doing interviews like this, just get like a tiny glimpse into what it would be like talking to you or being in your world for a little bit is something that I don't take for granted at all. I mean, I've spoken to over 80 plus people, from Steve Bloom to Corey Burton to Roger Craig Smith to Yuri Lowenthal. Like, I've spoken to so many who've given me their time, and who've afterwards, some have even decided to stay in touch with me, which is also like something that I never would have envisioned, just being able to call some people I've spoken to friends, which is insane. At the end of the day, it's something I truly will never take for granted ever. A day in my life, I won't. I really do appreciate it. So thank you again for speaking to me. I really do appreciate it.
No problem.
But, you know, to go to the Hollywood thing, I know that a lot of the time some of these corporations or companies want people to have big social media followings, and you do have a pretty decent sized one. Do you feel the pressure sometimes from like companies where they like have a bigger social media presence, have Instagram, have Snapchat, have have Reddit, this, that, and the third? Like, do you feel that weighing on you?
Sorry, do I feel what weighing on me? Like people's
like the pressure of it. Like, do companies ask you for like social media stats and stuff like that before you audition or anything like that?
I mean, I don't know if I've never had a company directly ask me for that, but I know that there are influences in the background. For example, you brought up Roger Craig Smith, and I believe I'm not spoiling anything because he posted about this publicly. There was a case where either he ultimately wasn't picked from an audition or he wasn't even given a chance to audition because his follower size was not large enough for the company to figure that he was worth using as a marketing tool. And I have had, unfortunately, conversations with colleagues in the past where they expressed disappointment that certain characters were cast as certain actors because they felt that the actors had a much bigger following and deserved a bigger role because they could make use of that following with a bigger role. And that just kind of pisses me off because it's like I said, you know, I'm not in this for the money. I'm in this, you know, I would like to make a comfortable living from it, but I'm not trying to get like filthy rich off of it. But I don't like this idea that I have to play this numbers game, that I have to constantly, you know, appeal to a mass audience and do the things that are going to get the most followers. You know, when I started streaming, my only reason that I wanted to hit partner was so that I could stop caring about the average viewer level for the rest of the time that I was a partner. Because Twitch, my understanding is Twitch doesn't care if you dip below the 75 once you're a partner. You just need to be active on your channel and not do anything that would get you in trouble with them. But you have to have that average of 75 to even be considered for the program in the first place. So, and then on the other hand, I remember seeing like discussions on Discord servers about you guys need to all make TikToks or you need to make Instagrams. Like I just posted this video of me just doing a couple of my character voices and it's got like 1 million likes. Like there's like 300,000 people sharing this post. And I'm sitting here like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't know any of those million people. You know, I'm what I'm about to say, and I don't want this taken out of context. Like, I'm not upset with anyone. I'm not angry about it, but I am aware that there are people who make cameo requests for me for characters that I'm well known for. And immediately after they get this private one-on-one video that I've made for them based on their request, they turn around, post it on TikTok or Instagram, and it gets tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of likes. And that's just overwhelming to me because it's like, okay, here is this thing that I thought was for you, and you've now turned around and made this a public spectacle. In the best case scenario, it's because you know, you wanted to share it and now there's a mass audience all latching onto it. That's beyond your control. In a worst case scenario, you knew that it was going to get a lot of views and you specifically did it as sort of like a like high horse situation where you're like, look what I got from this special celebrity. You know, aren't I so cool? Aren't I special to the rest of your community? And both of those just, they don't sit well with me. So what you do with your video that you paid for is up to you. You know, if I've always subscribed to the mantra of, you know, if you don't want something to be made public, don't do it in the first place. Because in the age of the internet, nothing that you say or do is guaranteed to be private forever, unless it stays locked up in here. But it is something that I have to be conscious of. It's something that I've gotten a lot better at, but it's this idea that at some point when I decided to get into this career, I outside of the scope of the law, I gave away my right to privacy. I gave away my right to not have everything that I say or do online scrutinized in regards to my relationship with clients, my relationship with my characters. God, number of times that we see complaints on Twitter of people towards actors going, that so-and-so character that you played would never act this way. How can you say something like this when you play a character like this? What a hypocrite that you are. Now, granted, most of the time it's in regards to the actor doing or saying something racist, sexist, or derogatory when the character that they play is not the other way around. Thankfully, I've never had someone say, like, you're an asshole because the characters that you play are sarcastic assholes. So I'm grateful for that. But it is something that I have to be conscious of at all times, because if I misstep, if I say something inappropriate, if I do a hot take that's really not a smart take at all, there is a higher level of repercussion for someone like me versus some random Joe on the internet. And that is something that I have to always be aware of if I want to maintain my career.
Right. That's that is a lot to consider. Digital footprint. It's a digital footprint. That's basically what it is.
Yeah, pretty much.
Also be very mindful of what you say and what you do and the effects it says. When we talk about a later topic, I'll never forget when one of my favorite guitarists of all time blocked me on Twitter. I was like, what is going on? It's like, what's happening?
I mean, I'm blocked by Tara Strong because she was pissed off at the fact that I criticized her for her support of NFTs. So,
we're in the same boat, bro. Let's go.
She straight up said or implied that I would never work with her or anyone that she associates with. So that's just something that I have to deal with because I was willing to take that stance.
That makes me so upset, because it's like this technology has been proven to be very problematic and very bad. This art space, this culture around this crypto scam is absolutely, it blows my mind every single time I see a celebrity or someone I know or a voice actor like Troy Baker coming out and supporting something, although he did take back his support for it. It's just, it upsets me to see that, and you can hate or create. Get out of my face. But it's just a whole mess, and it is what it is. And I really do applaud you. That's one thing I wanted to speak to you on, is just how much of a backbone you have. Like, you just have this energy about you. Like, you will stand for what's right, and I love that. Like, I follow you on Twitter. I see what you tweet.
I will tone it down by saying, I'm not perfect, and there are times that I've taken a stance in the past and then very quickly learned that it wasn't a very educated one, and that I need to be willing to think about what I'm saying. Absolutely. But with that being said, I think it's just important that at the end of the day, that you understand what your ethics and your morals are, and that you be willing to stand up for those ethics and morals, but just be aware of what possible repercussions you could face by making a statement. There are a lot of actors that choose to just say nothing, just remain neutral, and the only thing that they use their social media accounts for is posting, marketing and promoting stuff that they're in. And I understand that. I am someone who makes the personal choice to be very vocal about the things that are important to me, such as LGBT rights, trans rights. I mean, that is included LGBT, the Black Lives Matter movement, my disgust towards NFTs in general. And I understand that, in some ways that builds up my rapport with my audience for the people who feel the same way that I do and feel like someone with a bigger platform and a larger audience is speaking for them as well. In the same vein that I understand that there are some colleagues or clients who may never want to work with me because of what I say on those platforms. And as long as I am willing to accept that risk, if I'm willing to accept that divide between what do I stand to gain and what do I stand to lose, and as long as I'm confident that it aligns with what is important to me, then I have no regrets.
Absolutely. That makes me think of what I don't know if you watched the DC movies or anything like that. But Ray Fisher was the actor who played Cyborg in the Justice League movies, and I don't know if you kept up with him, but he's come out publicly against Warner Brothers for racist actions that he has personally dealt with, and he's dealing with the repercussions of that. I think about when John Boyega had to publicly come on the microphone and was like, I might never have a career again because I'm saying Black Lives Matter, or I'm standing up for a group of people who are marginalized and are deal with things on a daily basis. And when I hear stuff like that, it just breaks my heart. You know what I mean? Because like, why should someone be in risk of losing a job if they say, "Oh, racists are terrible," or my life matters, or this group of people deserve to have equal rights? Why is that so divisive? And it just it boils my blood as someone who has gone to an institution where I had to get in a fight with racists one time. Like I had to, like I got into that, and just to know that there are people out here who will villainize you and make you feel less than just because you're standing up for what's right pisses me off to no end. And I've personally seen that. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little upset.
You're good. You're good.
I'm sorry. I get a little upset when I talk about stuff like this.
I completely understand.
It's just a messy thing, and I really do applaud you for doing that. I'm the same way too. Like, whatever happens with this interview stuff or whatever I choose to do in my life, I'm always going to do what's right because it's the right thing to do. And people deserve to know that they matter and that their voice is heard, because this life shit is not easy. It's a lot going on right now, as we can clearly see. So it's just important to really stick up and stand up for one another and let each other know that our voices are heard, because it really is important. So, oh my gosh. But let's get back into you. What has been the most rewarding part of voicing some of these incredible characters like Spider-Man or Noob Saibot, or a ton of these characters from like Rush or from Killer Instinct and stuff like that?
What is I'm sorry, what is my feeling?
I said what has been the most rewarding part about playing all these incredible characters like Spider-Man and Noob Saibot?
I like that it keeps my brain stimulated. I like that, each day is a new experience. Each session is an opportunity to step into a different world, to try a different personality. I'm someone who historically struggled a lot with typical 8-hour jobs that he had to do 5 days a week. And it often felt like I was struggling just to stay focused or to stay awake. So the fact that I have something that continuously challenges me, that invites me to try something different, to be creative, I really genuinely appreciate. And it can be stressful at times, this feeling that I need to not to reinvent myself, but to do something unique, to not just phone it in as like, oh, this is just like this character, I'm going to do the same exact thing. It can cause it to be stressful at times, but I still prefer it over doing the same exact thing over and over and over again and risking burning out and just saying, I don't like doing this anymore. The same thing that can be a cause for stress can also be invigorating and inspiring and make me think about things in a different way and give me, the solutions that I come up with may give me something that I can draw from in the future. And I see it as just constantly adding to my repertoire, constantly adding to my skill set, and having more ways to answer future problems, future questions.
Yes, man. And some of these characters are just so incredibly written, and there's like so many layers to so many of these characters you've played. And I know that must be an incredible feeling to step into the shoes of this character. So let's get into this question that I had, was that how does acting help you when the world just seems so chaotic around you?
How do I feel, or how does it seem?
I said, how does acting help you when the world around you seems chaotic?
I mean, I wouldn't say that acting specifically helps me. Like, if anything, it makes me more aware of my privilege, because I'm aware of the typical pay rate for the jobs that I do. It makes me conscious of the fact that I was able to continue working throughout COVID. I was able to work from home where a lot of people lost their jobs. So if anything, it's only contributed to the sense of survivor's guilt. But I don't know. It's had both good and bad. Like, the same concept behind voice acting can also be applied to streaming. And I know that in my stream community, I've provided a sense of comfort for a lot of people that were struggling. But voice acting itself has not really helped me escape the realities of the outside world. It's just it's been work. It's been something for me to focus on and to be grateful for. And I'm aware at the end of the day that I still need to, mask up. I still need to take care of myself. I need to look after my friends. I wouldn't say that it's emotionally helped me. I mean, I'm glad. Rather, it hasn't contributed anything different in the current situation of the world than it already did when I first got involved in it, because voice acting itself is something that I enjoy. It's important to me. Being able to do it, brings me peace and catharsis. And that didn't change all of a sudden when COVID hit and the political climate changed. So in a way, my answer is kind of anticlimactic in that it hasn't done anything different, but it has still been a positive influence throughout the whole time that I've been engaged with it.
Right. Yeah, completely understand. Just sometimes, I hear in interviews how like acting has helped someone become more emotionally vulnerable, or has just been more able to do things, or just help them be better able to express their emotions, or really be able to tell people how they feel. And I was kind of looking at it from that aspect, but that's a really interesting point that you bring up. That what acting has done for your life. Because when I've done things for, like for instance, these interviews came out of one thing that I wanted to speak to a certain group of bandmates for a project, but also just because, like, to be honest, I mean, like when COVID hit, I was in the middle of my junior year in high school, and I was just like, there wasn't really much to do, and it's just kind of something to do. And this has helped me calm down, if that makes sense. Like, this has helped me like gain perspective from people, and it's just really helped me look at life in a different view. And that's why I love doing them so much. And this has come out of a birthplace of just like sadness and just confusion, because I couldn't see my friends, when the pandemic first hit, lockdown, no one could go anywhere. And it's just been such a privilege to be able to talk to people like you when I can't see people in person. So it's I get what you're saying when it's a positive thing through all this stuff, Right. So definitely agree with that. For a lot of the acting you've done, has been a lot of dub work. What specifically, what is so appealing about anime to you, and what would you say makes anime appealing to so many others? I'm a big anime guy. I haven't watched too much anime, I must shamefully admit.
Well, but, anime in particular, I mean, when it comes to working, I just like working any gig where the client feels like I'm a good fit. It just, in fact, in an ironic twist to answering your question, a major portion of my portfolio has actually been video games rather than anime. Even though anime is what got me into the voice acting industry in the first place, video games have been where most of my work came from. For me, the reason why anime hits a little closer to home is just because, it's what I grew up listening to when I was a night owl and I would stay up super late on school nights thanks to Adult Swim. I'm very much a visual learner. So I enjoy being able to see the emotions present on screen. I enjoy being able to see how they develop, especially when recording. The fact that I have all of that visual information feeding into my performance makes it easier for me at times than when I have a video game script, which typically is just the script, just the text, and I don't know the actual visuals of the scene. I don't know how far away the characters are from each other. I don't know what the character looks like in some cases. There is a case in a very, very, very popular RPG where the voice that I did was much closer to like what you'd imagine for like a typical like mafia gangster kind of thing. And the character in the final game was nothing like that. Like, they were bigger, they were muscled, they didn't look twingy at all. They had a darker skin tone than I did, which was not something that I was prepared for. And it seemed really mismatched for the performance that I gave. With anime, you don't have that kind of question or that kind of surprise, because what you see is what you're going to be performing to. So, as for why it applies to other people, I wouldn't be able to answer that. It's a unique experience to everyone. Maybe it's a show that helped get them through a tough time. Maybe it's got a beautiful art style. Maybe it's got a character who they personally identify with. Maybe it's a show that they watch together with their siblings or with their family, and it's important to them for that reason. I don't try to get, or I wouldn't dare to try to guess what makes anime an influence on the population in general. I am just grateful that they supported it and continue to support it in a way that makes companies realize that it is valuable to the demographic, and that they continue to license these properties, they continue to localize them, they continue to give more offerings. When as early as or as recently as 15, 20 years ago, it was treated as a foreign substance, as just something that was very niche and not really cared about. The same way that Dungeons and Dragons used to be looked at as like a nerd hobby for people, who were not popular or cool or socially adjusted enough to do real, things. And now it's much more widely accepted as a cool hobby, as something that is creative and imaginative, and is almost considered. I actually feel like I'm part of the outlier at this point, that I don't tend to do anything involving tabletop games or D&D, versus what I hear from everyone around me, not only within the industry, but even in my own friend circle.
No, right, we're in the same boat. I've never played any of those games. I see them all around me though. Like there's a store that just sells like tabletop, like Warhammer and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. I've never touched a tabletop game a day in my life. But I have played a ton of video games, and I have heard your voice a ton. But the first time I became a little bit more aware about your work and your portfolio was with Mortal Kombat 11 as Noob Saibot. I love the MK video games. I'm a huge Mortal Kombat junkie. Like I have all the games. I've played through all the stories and stuff. But I gotta ask, like, how'd you create that voice? Like, it's just so freaking cool to me.
Well, a lot of people thought that I borrowed it from Frank Welker's Dr. Claw, to the point where a lot of them congratulated Frank Welker at first when the trailer released, because they thought it was him doing the voice. I wish I could say I was that cool for pulling on that nostalgia, but mine's both a little bit more unique and a little bit more nerdy. I was one of the maybe 12 people who played and enjoyed Shadow the Hedgehog on Nintendo GameCube. And there's a character voiced by Sean Schemmel in it called Black Doom. Literally this alien from a different world or from outer space. And he talks almost exactly the same way. He's like, "Shadow, you must collect the Chaos Emeralds." Like literally, he talks with that deep rumbling voice. And the reason why I immediately thought of him was because in the character sides for Noob Saibot, when he was codenamed and it didn't actually give any info as to what project this was going to be for, the character was described as ethereal, wraith-like, not of this world. And so I realized that whatever voice I wanted to do, I wanted it to not sound human. So when I did my 2 takes, the first one I leaned for more of that wraith-like. I did for more of like a higher pitched, ghostly, breathy type of voice. Something that you would hear on the wind, like maybe it doesn't even have a physical form. It's just in the air. But then for the opposite, if I was going to do one that was high pitched for my second take, I wanted to do the exact opposite. I wanted to be low, demonic, baritone. And that was what immediately came to mind, because he was literally not of this world. He was wraith-like. He was an alien. So I used those as my inspiration. They ended up liking the deeper voice, and that's how I booked that gig.
Are you a Mortal Kombat fan yourself?
I'm a fan of how campy it can be at times. I'm no good at fighting games. So like when I went to a Mortal Kombat 11 tournament at a convention I was guesting at, the most of my involvement was ordering pizza for everyone, offering additional money in the prize pool if someone won the tournament using Noob Saibot, which they did, so I paid out, and helping trash talk everyone that was playing, no matter who was playing. Like, it didn't matter what character they were using, it didn't matter how good they were, I was insulting anyone and everyone, and the community was eating it up. It was great.
Were you aware of Noob Saibot's previous story connections and like from the other games and how it related to MK11, or did they have tell you?
I only really knew that as of Mortal Kombat 11 that he had fallen into darkness, like fallen into the netherworld. Now, whether he embraced it or and just simply ended up there, I don't quite recall. But I know that in Mortal Kombat 9, he definitely did not have as much of a ghostly, wraith-like appearance. And then something happened, either the world was taken over or whatever, and he ended up giving in. He's like, you know what? I think this is the future. This is the way. This is who the victors are going to be. So I'm going to join them now rather than wait until it's too late. And so he wholeheartedly jumped into it head first and just let it consume him. And that's how he ended up the way that he was.
I absolutely love your performance as Noob Saibot. I just think it's just like such a radical take on this character that I've never heard before.
A lot of people loved it when they thought it was Frank Welker, and then as soon as they realized it wasn't him, I saw a lot of flips to like, who the hell is this Sean Chiplock guy? It sounds so campy. It sounds so stupid. I just like that there is no neutral middle ground. People either think it's super edgy, super dark, and like really cool for the character, or they think it's overly hammy. They think it's like trying too hard to be a Saturday morning cartoon villain, and they despise it. But it's only one of those two. There is no middle ground here.
Why do you think Noob is the way he is? Like sort of just this dark, wraithy character that's, obviously he's related to Sub-Zero and they have their brawl. Why do you think he acts the way he does?
Because he was the victim of an NFT scam and he never actually let go of that grudge. He just decided, like, if I can't be happy, no one can, and now I'm going to take out my vengeance on the whole world for not protecting me from this scam. He thought NFT stood for like netherworld fighting tokens, and he was like, "Oh my god, I'm a fighter, I can make so much money, I'm so good at this game." And then he got totally scammed, and he's like, "No, NFT stand for no, fuck this." So no friends there. So
he saw someone make a crypto form of him, and he had to get into it immediately. Thought it was just for him.
He's like, I'm gonna put the crypt in cryptocurrency.
Also, I love about Mortal Kombat 11 the customizable options that you could do with characters like Noob Saibot, and you could like take his mask off and put on like the classic mask, or you could rip the classic body off and put on like the newer body. I just love that. Have you played Mortal Kombat 11?
Outside of just doing funsy matches during those tournaments, no, I don't have the time for it.
Oh, dang. Okay. I was about to ask you a whole bunch of questions about like his fighting style and how he fought and stuff. But there's a character that there's been a lot of talk about, especially with the new movie Spider-Man that you played and Marvel's Avengers. And there's been a lot of talk, especially from my friend group who are massive fans of Spider-Man. When I initially saw your casting, I was extremely excited because I was like fresh blood to the Spider-Man character. Although you've played Spider-Man before in Marvel TLDR, you've played a ton of characters.
Yeah.
Rocket Raccoon.
I love the people that I worked with, and I'm so happy that they enjoyed my performances so much. But there was a point where I was like, guys, maybe we should give some of these characters to someone else. Like, there comes a point where it's going to start to all sound the same. And I don't want people to be like, who is this Chiplock guy voicing 40 people? Like, why does he need to play all of them? But I will admit it was cool when I would occasionally see Marvel TLDR episodes playing on the cast member TV screens backstage at Disneyland where I worked for a couple months. Because I was like, oh, this is like official. Like the people in charge are showing this. Okay. All right. So
yeah, and you played Wolverine. I was like, damn, okay, Sean, I see you with the vocal range. That's such cool characters, so many cool Marvel characters. But I was really excited. But one question I had to ask was the voice we hear in the final game the voice you auditioned with, or did like the directors tell you to change something about it?
I'm pretty sure I did both a younger and a slightly older version. So I want to say in that case, it was a situation where, we made some adjustments to the way that I read, but at the end of the day, it was pretty close to how I normally speak.
Okay. So when the backlash hit about your voice, there's been a ton of backlash about how Spider-Man plays in the game too, with the web swinging and stuff. I'm not sure if you've seen it, and some people are saying your voice is too high, which is an interesting thing. But how do you look at the backlash now? Is it the same as when the backlash first hit, or is it the same?
I don't care. I mean, I care, but I don't care. Like I'm aware that my voice might have been a little bit too high pitched. It was a choice that I ended up making. It was one that the client, wanted or agreed with. I had my reasons for going that way. There were parts of me that were like, hey, he's fresh out of college. He's still relatively young. He might be. There's a lot of us who, when we're nervous, our voice tends to get a little bit higher pitched because we don't want to seem imposing. We don't want to come off as being too aggressive. And, was it a choice that maybe not everyone agreed with? Yeah. Is it something that I might have done differently if I came back? Possibly. But at the end of the day, the only thing that I can do is the best job that I can do at the moment that I'm recording. And so if anything, it's a lesson that I can take going forward. So, any of the backlash regarding like how Spider-Man actually plays, I don't give a shit. I don't care. Like, I'm not in charge of that. That doesn't have any influence on my performance whatsoever. It's not something that I can be held responsible for. So it's not going to bother me. It upsets me only in regards to that I would hope people who paid money for a game enjoy playing it and that they don't feel like their money was wasted. But in terms of my own individual involvement, backlash over game mechanics is not something that deserves any time or attention in my mind. And then as for the performance, if people liked it, great. If they didn't, I will do my best to conceptualize that and internalize it, keep it in mind for next time. And it can only help me grow as an actor.
Absolutely. And even though I have my personal opinion on your take on the Spider-Man voice, I want you to come back. I really do.
What's your personal opinion?
Okay. So personally,
just be honest, man. I don't give a shit. Just go.
Personally, I wish you would have done an older take on Spider-Man. Not that I hate your younger, higher pitched take on, well, not higher pitched, but sort of younger version.
Yeah.
I really want to go back to form to like, Christopher Daniel Barnes or Josh Keaton, where the voice is like deeper and even though I love Yuri's take in the Insomniac games, I wish his was deeper too. I don't hate your guys' performance at all. I love you guys' performance. Sure. I truly do. But I just really wish we could go back to form when we heard like a older Spider-Man, like back when I said like Christopher Daniel Barnes or Josh Keaton. I really would love to hear that older Marvel event, spectacular Spider-Man.
And I'm totally fine with people feeling that way. And for all we know, maybe if they decide to go, or if they had gone with a deeper Spider-Man, maybe I wouldn't have been the best fit for that anymore. But it's a totally valid opinion. You can't expect to win over the entire crowd. And I'm glad that you are willing to share that opinion with me.
I was so scared to say that. I ain't gonna lie. I thought
I got paid, man. I got paid either way. As long as I'm willing to hear out the critique and just keep it in mind for next time, it ultimately doesn't matter.
Absolutely. In your opinion, what is peak Spider-Man for you, though? Like, what is Spider-Man at his peak? Like, him as a character and him in his best form, in your opinion, at least. From experience.
In regards to what?
Like, story-wise, like, what do you think Spider-Man best excels at in terms of like story?
When he's put into situations where he has to couple being a superhero with just being a kid, and I mean being a much younger adult than most of the people that he works with. I remember jokingly mentioning as a hypothetical situation in part of a different interview, this idea of like he's trying to take a personal day at Disney World or something like that, and inevitably has to rescue someone when a ride goes haywire. And on the one hand, he's upset that like he once again had to don the superhero costume and like not ruin, but stop his personal day because he didn't want someone to get hurt. But also understanding that that's part of the responsibility he has for being a hero, and that it comes back full circle when the person saved offers to do anything for him, and he says, I'd really like a churro. Like, I want a hot churro. And I feel like it's that divide of, Spider-Man is still just a person trying to live a normal life, but understanding that he has certain privileges that normal people don't have anymore, versus someone like Captain America or Thor, who are often called upon to use their powers and have all but given up the semblance of a normal life. Like, they enjoy the private time when they can get it, but you never really get this impression that they pine for it, that they really desire to not be superheroes as often as they are. Whereas it's something that's much more prevalent with Spider-Man, where he's like, I understand that there are times when I have to step up and be the hero, but that's not all I want to be. That's not my entire identity. And there are times where I wish it wasn't my identity at all. So I think that's part of what makes him a lot more relatable to us as an audience, because I'm sure there are lots of times when we are called upon to have to do something we are either unfamiliar with or we feel unprepared for, or that is just way more stressful than we are used to in our normal lives. And we understand that it has to get done, but we just want to go back. We want to be able to live the life that we want. We hope that this isn't going to become our new norm. So.
Right. Favorite live action Spider-Man? I gotta ask you this.
For that reason, I've really enjoyed the MCU version. I really have enjoyed the Tom Holland. However, seeing No Way Home has made me, I mean, I like all of them for different reasons. I like the no nonsense, intelligent approach to life that the Raimi movies had. I love Andrew Garfield is probably the one that I identify most closely with in terms of personality. They're all good for different reasons. So
I completely agree. No Way Home I love that movie. Can't get enough of it. I've watched the movie at least like 4 times. So good. I think they pulled off something that I never would have thought they could have. Because like from when I first initially heard of it, I was like, how are they gonna pull all this off? What are they gonna do? How are they gonna progress Tom Holland's character? And like they did all of it like in one fell swoop. Like I loved it. Such a great time. One of my friends wanted me to ask you this because he's a huge Persona fan, and you played the character of, how do you pronounce his name?
Mishima Yuki?
Yes, there, him, Mishima Yuki. And he wanted me to ask you, how did it feel to step into the shoes of a victim of abuse?
I'm just very glad that they presented it not only seriously but realistically. I appreciate that they showed how inappropriate the abuse is, and they had the abuser be a villain and be treated accordingly. But I also like that not only did we get a chance to see Mishima grow into a developed character, like the abuse did not continue to linger over him even after he was able to escape from it, but also that it didn't miraculously make him incapable of falling into his own traps and doing his own reprehensible things. The fact that he goes from being a survivor of abuse to being jealous of the Phantom Thieves to the point where they have to step in and intervene because he's starting to let it consume his own psyche. I like that it was realistic about the fact that of survivors of abuse are still, they are still capable, they are still strong, but that doesn't mean they are infallible. And they can still fall into the same emotional or psychological issues that any other person can. And so we have to be able to deal with those things on a case-by-case basis.
Absolutely. How do you feel about the character in general, like about his personality?
I like that he's introspective. I like, especially, what often comes to mind is the conversation that he has with Joker during his rank 10 scene. And I like that he's able to reflect upon himself and his actions and understand what's important to him.
That's Evan. I hope that answered your questions, because I never played Persona, but it sounds cool. He really wants me to play them, so I might get into them sooner rather than later. But I wanted to transition into a pretty cool part of my interviews. It's called Weird and Wacky. We have 1 minute to answer a series of weird and random questions. No one has beaten. No one has gotten to a record of 15 questions, although the current championship title holder is Simon Norfleet with a record of 14 questions answered. Do you think you could beat him?
He answered how many?
14 in 1 minute.
Sure, let's go for it. I'll try to be quick, but I tend to give very extended answers. That's just how I am.
I'm the same way. All right, I'm about to start the timer in 3, 2, 1. Favorite dessert?
Flan.
Favorite restaurant?
Curry House.
A song that plays in your head on loop?
I can't decide whether you should live or die.
Favorite Nintendo character besides Mario or Luigi?
Pommy from Bomberman 64: Second Attack.
Favorite line you've delivered as any character?
Don't be a bobbleheaded turd burglar.
Dumbest thing you did as a kid?
Almost cut my friend's fingers off in the garbage disposal.
Would you rather be bitten by a dog or stung by a bee?
Stung by a bee.
Would you rather have no teeth or no fingernails?
No fingernails.
Favorite album cover?
Steal This Album from Sum 41.
A character you relate the most to?
I think that might have been wrong. Character that I relate the most to, probably Peter Parker.
Favorite franchise?
Favorite franchise, probably Demon Gaze.
Oh,
System of a Down. It was System of a Down that had Steal This Album.
I was about to say, I don't think that's pretty. I'm sure System of a Down because I'm a huge metal fan.
I'm trying to remember what the Sum 41 album that I got originally. Does This Look Infected? Yeah, that's the one that I'm thinking. Does This Look Infected was the first album that I bought.
What type of music are you into?
Any. Like, I tend to like a lot of music that ends up on DDR, so I guess Eurobeat or just anything with like a good tempo. I'm a big fan of Toho music as well. But as long as it has a good rhythm and if it's something that I can listen to multiple times, it doesn't matter. It could be rock, it could be jazz, it could be electro swing, it could be video game music, it could be chiptune, doesn't matter.
My final question to you, Sean, is if you were given a mic and the world could hear you give one message to the world, what would you tell the world during these current times that we live in? Obviously, we're still living in a global pandemic. Laws are being changed around the world. Things are going on everywhere. What would you say to people just to give them a sense of hope?
Understand your worth, understand your value, understand what you bring to the world, pick your battles, stand up for what you believe in, and work to always work towards either improving your strengths or covering for your weaknesses. At the end of the day, you are the person who is most in charge of your own development, whether that's in your personal life or in your professional career. And a lot of what we are proud of or what we are regretful of ultimately boils down to the choices that we make day by day. So figure out what your own limits are and then exceed your own expectations.
Wow, I couldn't have put that perfectly, Sean. Thank you so much for spending your time and talking to me. I really hope you've enjoyed your time here. Thank you. I'm glad I've gotten to know you a little bit more, the person behind some of these incredible characters. Is there anything you want to plug or promote before you head off?
Twitter for my shit posts. That's twitter.com/sonicmega. Twitch for my streaming. That's twitch.tv/sonicmega. Those are the major two that I'm active on. And other than that, I don't mind if people want to focus on their own lives right now because we live in a hell of a crazy world at the moment. So, please, look after yourselves. Yeah, just be good to each other.
Also, this question came up. I don't know who this character is, but
which character? Hold on, let me check the stream.
He says, does he like Tarotsa Yushim? I cannot pronounce that.
Tatsuro Yamashita. I don't know who that is, so let me Google it real quick. I don't know if that's an actor or a character.
Okay, we're gonna find out.
Looks like they're a musician, Japanese singer, songwriter, and record producer, often referred to as the king of city pop. I don't know if I've heard his music before, but I'm willing to listen to it.
But before we head off, Sean, could you, in your Noob Saibot voice, give the interview a shout
out? Sure. What do you want me to say?
Just something in the vein of the character, or just like this was cool, or I had a good time, or something like that. Something
along voice.
Noob Saibot.
Oh, I'm good to say a phrase. I don't know what you would want me to say. Like, what is the name of the show? I'm trying to figure out what it's. I don't see it here.
Okay, it is called Jantmore Interviews.
Jantmore Interviews.
Or if you want to do it in Peter's voice, whichever is easier on your vocals.
No, I can do Noob Saibot. Okay. All right.
Remember, embrace the darkness and Jantmore Interviews.
Thank you so much, Sean. I have a couple things I'm going to send your way as a token of my appreciation for coming on. So thank you so much. I hope you have an incredible day. You're an awesome person, and I can only wish you the best from here on out. Thank you for spending time with me, and I hope you have an incredible rest of your day. Congratulations on becoming a house owner, and I'm just really happy for you, man. So keep rocking on, and just hope to stay in touch. And just thank you so much again.
No problem.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Take care.
You too. All right.